Radio Woodstock 100.1. We're here from Mountain Jam 10, Hunter Mountain, Hunter, New York. The first time I heard the Rolling Stones Get Your Ya-Ya's Out, I put the record on and I said, you know what? I want to be that guy. The guy that introduced the Rolling Stones. And here, some of the years later, here's that guy. Sam Cutler is the voice that you hear at the beginning of Get Your Ya-Ya's Out. Can you give us a little bit of that?
Yeah, right. I could tell you a story behind it, but anyway, I used to go out on the Stones tour and stand in front of everyone and go, "The greatest rock and roll band in the world, the Rolling Stones." Actually, what happened was on the first date of the '69 tour with the Rolling Stones, we were flying to a gig in Colorado, which was going to be a kind of quiet gig on a campus, and no one had thought about who was going to introduce the band, and Mick said, "Well, Sam will do it." And I said, "Yeah, I don't mind doing it, you know what I mean, so no problem." So I didn't even think anything more about it. I had lots of other things to do, and it was like a minute before the show was due to begin. Suddenly I was going to have to go on and say something. And what had happened was about 2 weeks before that, I was standing in a rehearsal of the Stones, and there was a couple of girls standing there, and I said to them, "What do you think of what do you think of this?" Because I thought the band was terrible. They hadn't played together, for years anyway, kind of thing. And they went, "Oh, they're the greatest rock and roll band in the world." And that kind of stuck with me. And I went on stage and said, "The greatest rock and roll band in the world." And afterwards, when they finished, Mick came off and he gave me the filthiest look. He said, "I want to talk to you," you know what I mean? So we went in.
He didn't like it?
No, we went in the dressing room on our own, and he said, "Man, don't call us the greatest rock and roll band in the world. It's embarrassing." And I said to him, "Well, either you are or you ain't. You know what I mean? What's it gonna be?" So it just.
Now, Keith probably had a different version.
Well, Keith didn't mind it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Keith, because there's some big differences between the Rolling Stones and the Grateful Dead. The Rolling Stones, whether Mick likes it or not, he does have an ego that's bigger than that mountain that's sitting behind your head there out the window.
Yeah.
And he's very competitive. You know what I mean? He wants to have. He likes being in the biggest, greatest rock and roll band in the world. So that's, I think, why it's stuck.
What is the greatest opening song of any concert ever?
Jesus Wants Me for a Sunbeam?
Nope.
I'm not sure.
No, it's Jumpin' Jack Flash.
It could be. I mean, it depends on your take, doesn't it? For many years of my life, it was Cumberland Blues.
All right.
Played by the Grateful Dead,
Yeah.
up-tempo, crisp, tight, and just Garcia's guitar so wonderfully dancing over the melody line, So it used to be. No, I don't know about Jumping Jack Flash.
Jumping Jack Flash is the right answer.
I think Street Fighting Man. There's a few. The Midnight Rambler was amazing.
No, but they didn't open with those songs.
No, but
I'm saying best opening song. Best song to start a concert with, ever.
Oh, well, the national anthem, dear. God Save Our Gracious Queen.
No, Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Don't you guys like Queens here in America? I heard you did. I heard it was everything's possible nowadays.
Sam Cutler, You Can't Always Get What You Want is the book. My Life with the Rolling Stones, the Grateful Dead, and other wonderful reprobates. Are you one of those reprobates yourself?
Absolutely, and you're one too. I can recognize one from 100.
It takes one to know one.
100 yards,
Yeah.
exactly, but.
So some of the chapters in this book, Let 'Em Bleed. Bill Graham, Mick Taylor, The King of Torts, A Free Concert, Welcome to California, Aftermath, Jerry and Janice, Garcia. Trust me, I'm a Christian. You got a lot of stories.
Yeah, the thing is, man, there are of course a lot of rock and roll books out there, aren't there?
Yeah.
And I've read. Not many of them, but lots of them.
Did you read Keith Richards' book?
I did, yeah.
Did you finish it yet?
I finished it, and a third of it is wonderful, where Keith's talking about music and what he loves about music, and shows how deeply Keith is into his music. He's not just it's not just an act. You know what I mean? And he's a wonderful guitar player. If you listen to him playing acoustic guitar, playing acoustic blues, you'd swear it was 1923 in the Mississippi Delta. He's wonderful, and I love the man. when he talks about how hard and tough he is and all that stuff, it's all a bit boring. Please, you know. And you know, people who know him well. I mean, Keith has a public image like any artist. You know, that artists have public images, and then they have the private reality of who this person is. You know, I mean, Keith's a bibliophile. He collects rare manuscripts and rare books. You know, which is not really like a kind of switchblade, swashbuckling pirate, really, is it? It's a slightly more kind of esoteric.
When Keith gets hurt, it's falling off the ladder in his library.
Right, exactly. In fact, he suffers from vertigo after he gets up to the 5th level. He's got a huge library, and he's a very sophisticated guy. You know, who. You know, because he's Keith Richards, obviously, and been in the Stones. I mean, the Stones have been stars, you know, on an international level since the mid-'60s. You know, it's a long time to be around, isn't it, and be at that level. So one of the beauties of being somebody like a Keith Richards or a Mick is you get to meet all kinds of other fascinating artists, writers, painters, you know what I mean? And so he's been exposed to the height of, you know, Euro culture, as it were, and he's a very sophisticated guy, as I say. I mean, he speaks beautiful French, and he's no fool. And I think also, I mean, one should say about musicians that, you know, these musicians who've been around for a long time and kind of arrived at some kind of strange, exalted status, most of them are quite shrewd people. They're not silly boys or silly girls, you know.
They may have been at one time.
Oh yeah, they burnt the candle at both ends in the middle for sure. But they've arrived at a certain kind of state of rock and roll grace, haven't they? You know.
Radio Woodstock, Sam Cutler, tour manager, Rolling Stones, 1969. That was the first really big tour.
Well, yeah, it was a very big thing for them. You know, like people ask me what was so different about it. Well, one thing was, you see, when the Rolling Stones used to play before that, they hadn't played for like 3 years before '69.
Yeah, it was '66. They were here, and it was little things.
And
everybody screamed.
And they played in
little speakers
in cinemas,
right?
And so they used the PA system from the cinema to, you know, for the vocal. It was very, very primitive. When they came here for the '69 tour, they took a PA from show to show, which was unheard of. The Rolling Stones had never done it before. So that allowed, of course, Mick, you know, to do vocals. But the biggest thing was, I think, is in '66, you know, all the girls wet themselves and came charging down to the front and tried to tear everyone's clothes off, and there was a riot, you know. So the Rolling Stones never played for longer than 10 or 15 minutes. This time in '69, they were happily surprised to see that people actually wanted to hear their music, you know. So that was
and it was boys up front.
Yeah, well, lots of boys, yeah. But I mean, I think, you know, the realization that people were going to listen and that they better be good, you know what I mean, drove the Rolling Stones to you know, certain musical heights for sure. I mean, to get your yayas out, the band is tight, it's wonderful, and yeah, it's a certain. I mean, the Grateful Dead. When I first met the Grateful Dead, I always tell people about it. They go, "Oh, it must have been such a leap to go from the Rolling Stones to the Grateful Dead." But the first thing the Grateful Dead said to me, I'd only known them for 4 or 5 days, was, "Come down to the rehearsal studio. We want to show you something." So I went down there. They spent all afternoon playing Rolling Stones songs to me. They knew every Rolling Stones song that had ever been done and loved them.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the Rolling Stones, the idea that the Rolling Stones would play a Grateful Dead song is just ridiculous. You know what I mean? You know, I mean, the Rolling Stones treated.
I couldn't see them doing Sugar Magnolia.
No, I don't think so.
No.
You know, not really their cup of tea.
No,
you know, to say
When's the last
least.
time you saw the Rolling Stones, Sam?
I saw them in August, 3 years ago in Australia. In fact, I was going to pick up my kid at school, and I was outside the school in my bus, because I live in a bus, and I got a phone call, and the voice said, "Is this Sam Cutler?" Very kind of aristocratic English voice. I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, this is Charlie Watts. What's that noise?" I said, "Oh, that's children, you know." And he called me up to invite me to their gig. So I went to the gig anyway. And yeah, they were great, you know what I mean? It's like, once you've known people for that long, I mean, you put up with we've all been naughty boys one way or another, or girls, you know what I mean? So yeah, your friendships kind of transcend whatever's happened to you, you know what I mean? And Charlie and I are still friends. You know, we write or speak to one another once every couple of years. You know, and I admire him. And I'm pleased to see the Rolling Stones still alive. I mean, I don't think they've really made anything magic in music for quite a long time, but that's okay. They're still alive, you know. And people seem to like it, you know.
They still like it.
Yeah.
They just played Israel for the first time.
Hey.
Wednesday night.
Yeah. Goodness.
Still traveling the world.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Stones, you know. I mean, there is the thing. What else are they going to do?
No.
None of them are any good at anything else other than being musicians. Bless them. That's what they've chosen to be in life. So, yeah, I mean, it's lovely that they can still do it. I mean, Mick's still healthy. Keith survived. The man that death forgot.
Well,
Charlie, you know, had health issues, and he managed to, you know, beat that. So yeah, it's like seeing old members of your family, isn't it? God bless them. So I'm just pleased I don't have to pay the ticket price.
I have a Rolling Stones ticket stub that says $8 on it.
$8, yeah. And I tell you what, that was the '69 tour, and everybody was moaning because of the ticket prices, and the Rolling Stones were charging actually $7 and $8, and what's his name? The Doors were charging $8 and $9.
Oh, jeez.
So it wasn't, you know, excessive. But to look back on it, it's quite funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of my mum, you know, telling me, oh, when I was a girl, I only had 2 pence a week pocket money. You know what I mean? It's like, so what?
Sam Cutler, so many great stories to tell. Jimi Hendrix, you have the Altamont story, which is a big story that everybody
Hendrix
wants to know.
was very sweet. When you bang that book on the table like that, it dents the table, and your listeners are thinking, what's that bonking going on in the back?
That must be some
back
book. That book dents tables.
It
I gotta
dents
get
tables.
me 2 of those.
It dented my head.
I need 2 of those.
It dented my head right in it. I can assure you of that. But there you are. But
so you're here at Mountain Jam, and you're selling this book.
I'm here
and
at
you'll sign
Mountain
it?
Jam selling the book, and I'm loving Mountain Jam as a site. It's just wonderful, isn't it? I mean, what a great
And you see
place.
your old friend Bob Weir tonight?
See Bobby. I saw him when I was in California a while back, and yeah, he was in good shape, because the last I'd actually visually seen him was I saw something on YouTube where he was falling over on stage. I'm like, oh my God, what? Not a good look, Bob. But he's better. Yeah, he's had really bad neck. He's got kind of disc degenerating in his neck. I think from having a guitar strap around his neck for the last 50 or 60 years, you know, a heavy guitar. But he's good now, so he doesn't drink and doesn't do anything but oxygen. So yeah, he's healthy, you know. I mean, this is the thing. Nobody's getting any younger, are they? Even Weir's getting old. He's got grey hair and all that. He used to be the perennial kind of kid around the Grateful Dead, you know what I mean? Yeah. And
16, I think he told me last night, 16 when he was in the Grateful Dead.
And yeah. And I mean, Weir was one of those guys that he looked like he was 21 when he was 40. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the kind of thing. So he's doing well, man. I went to see Phil, and Phil, bless him, you know, I mean, Phil's in his 70s.
Yeah.
You got to be happy when people are still alive and playing music, I guess. You know, I mean, I don't play music, but I've known so many musicians and love their stuff, so good on them.
And stick around for the Allman Brothers, who wrap it up. And
Definitely, I should go and see him and say hello to him. Well, the thing I did with the Allman Brothers, the most significant thing was we did the first show in RFK football stadium in
DC.
DC, yeah, with the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead, with, I don't know, 75,000 people in it. And I remember the guy who was, is it the Washington Redskins played in that? Yeah, the coach of the Washington Redskins, who was who was President Nixon used to call him up and give him plays.
Right,
And I remember being told about this guy before I met him. I thought, oh, this is going to be a redneck prick for sure. And he was. I can't think of his name, Chuck.
Who was the Redskin?
George Allen.
George Allen?
Yeah, complete.
Yeah.
Apostrophe,
It's in the book.
apostrophe. And so he goes, Well, you're going to be playing on AstroTurf, and AstroTurfs cost $100 a square foot or something like that, some dumb thing like that. What are you going to do to protect the AstroTurf? So I said, well, this is what we're going to do. I've already worked out how this was going to be done. We're going to cover it with plywood, with half-inch ply, right? And then we're going to cover it with a tarmac, with not tarmac, what do you call it?
Tarp?
Tarps, yeah. The whole thing will be covered with tarps. And he goes, you know what that's going to cost? I said, well, it ain't going to cost you anything. And that was the extent of my conversation with him, because the general management of the place wanted it to happen. Because the big thing, of course, is when you do a football game, you sell all the tickets out, but there's nobody on the field, is there, other than the players? When you do a rock and roll show, you sell all the seats and the field. And believe me, you can get, at a pinch, you can easily get 30,000 people on a football field with the end zones, if not maybe more. And if you add 50,000 seats to that, you're talking about 70 or 80,000 people. So we did that. That was the first ever rock and roll show in that stadium, very successful. And the other thing I did with the Allman Brothers, which was wonderful, was we did Watkins Glen, which was just near here, where the Allman Brothers, the band, and the Grateful Dead played together. And it still, to this day, has the record as the largest attendance concert in rock and roll history.
Yeah, some say 600.
720,000 paid admissions.
Wow.
Somebody got a lot of money.
Somebody did.
Yeah, well,
It wasn't you?
Not me, no, unfortunately. But it's okay. I mean, I worked for the Grateful Dead. Well, I worked for the Grateful Dead. I got $200 a week. That's what I paid myself.
All right.
But I used to tell people, listen, man, don't forget, the only reason I'm working for you is because I love you. You don't pay me enough, and you ain't got enough money to pay me to do something I don't want to do. You know what I mean? And I've lived my life like that. And I would say to all your happy listeners out there, hello. But also I would, if I may, offer a word of advice,
Please.
right? Don't worry about the money. Go for the pleasure and the fun, because the pleasure and the fun will make you grow old contentedly, and the money will just give you, arterial sclerosis and all kinds of the diseases that afflict the wealthy, heart conditions, diabetes, weight issues. Stay lean and mean and have fun. That's my advice.
Sam Cutler, You Can't Always Get What You Want is the new book. It's out now. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Lovely talking to you. And
All
lovely. Right. I hope let me get this straight. I hope your listeners come to Mountain Jam, because Mountain Jam sure does look pretty from where I'm watching it.
Right on.
Thanks.